Chapter 7. The Hidden. Back on Starlight Keep, the team gathered in the dimly lit Eldritch Library. The tension in the room was evident, the events at Shadow's End leaving everyone on edge. Darius Nightblade worked silently at a terminal, his sharp green eyes focused on decrypting the data salvaged from the destroyed datapad. Lines of code flickered across the holographic screen, and every so often he would mutter under his breath. Jack leaned against a nearby wall, his arms crossed. "How's it looking, Darius? Please tell me you're pulling a rabbit out of this hat." Darius didn't look up. "If by rabbit you mean actionable intel, then I'd say, maybe. This encryption is tight, but whoever set it up wasn't expecting someone like me." "Careful," Garrick Stonehelm grunted, his heavy boots thudding as he paced the room. "Pride comes before a plasma bolt to the chest." Darius smirked, but didn't reply, his fingers moving deftly over the controls. Seraphine Moonshadow stood nearby, her staff glowing faintly as she watched the exchange. If the Harmonium collective is involved, this could be far larger than even we feared. Lyra Starwhisper, seated cross-legged on a floating platform nearby, opened her glowing eyes. The collective thrives on chaos. Their hand is in every corner of instability across the galaxy. If they have infiltrated Starlight Keep, no one here is safe. "That's comforting," Jack muttered. He turned to Darius. "Do we have names, locations, anything that points to the puppet master?" Darius straightened suddenly, his expression sharp. "Got it. It's not the whole picture, but it's enough." A series of communication logs filled the screen, their contents fragmented but damning. They revealed transactions between a rogue element on Starlight Keep and the Harmonium Collective, detailing shipments of weapons, falsified records, and payments funneled through multiple accounts. "Fenris Lightfoot," Darius said, his voice cold. "The alien trader. He's been supplying resources to the saboteurs, materials, weapons, even disguises to frame humans." Jack let out a low whistle. "Fenris? Of course. That slippery bastard's always got his claws in something shady." Seraphine's expression was grim. "Fenris has been a presence on Starlight Keep for years. His connections run deep, and his reputation has kept him untouchable. If he's involved, this is no small operation." "Where is he now?" Garrick asked, his voice hard. Darius tapped the screen, pulling up a tracking log. "His ship, the Twilight Fang, is docked in the lower hangars, but if we confront him, he'll bolt the second he sees us coming." Jack's grin was humorless. "Then we make sure he doesn't see us coming." The team moved swiftly through the station, their destination the shadowy depths of the Crystal Caverns, where Fenris Lightfoot often conducted his under-the-radar dealings. The marketplace, known for its chaotic layout and vibrant glow from bioluminescent minerals, was bustling with activity. Vendors of all species called out their wares, while traders haggled in a cacophony of languages. Seraphine led the way, her commanding presence cutting through the crowd. Jack flanked her, his Galrex mark, V-holstered but within reach. Garrick walked beside them, his GX-22 particle rifle slung across his back, drawing wary glances from the crowd. "Fenris's stall is up ahead," Darius said, his tone low. "He'll have backup. He always does." "Then we'll give him something to back up from," Garrick growled. As they approached the trader's stall, Fenris came into view. The wiry alien had sleek silver fur and sharp, intelligent eyes that darted nervously as he spoke to a customer. His movements were smooth, almost serpentine, as he handed over a crate of unregistered goods. Jack stepped forward, his grin sharp. "Fenris, fancy seeing you here." The alien froze, his eyes flicking to Jack and then to the rest of the team. "Mitchell," Fenris said, his tone light but wary. "What brings you to my humble corner of the market?" "You know exactly why we're here," Jack replied, his voice hard. "We've got your logs, the weapons, the sabotage, the payments, everything. Fenris's smile didn't waver, but his tail flicked nervously. You must be mistaken. I'm just a simple trader. Garrick stepped forward, towering over the alien. A simple trader with ties to the Harmonium Collective? That's quite the resume. Fenris took a step back, his hands raised. I don't know what you're talking about. Lyra's voice cut through the tension, calm but piercing. The shadows cling to you, Fenris. Lies and guilt entwined. You cannot hide what you've done. Fenris's facade cracked. His sharp eyes darted toward the far end of the stall, where a hidden exit lay. Before anyone could react, he bolted. After him! Jack shouted, drawing his pistol. The chase through the crystal caverns was a blur of movement and sound. Fenris moved with desperate speed, weaving through the crowded marketplace. Jack was right on his tail, his plasma pistol drawn, but held steady to avoid collateral damage. Stop running, Fenris! Jack called, vaulting over a crate. You're only making this worse! Fenris didn't reply, his silver fur a streak of light in the shadows. As he reached the exit, Garrick appeared from the side, blocking his path with his rifle raised. Nowhere to go, Lightfoot, Garrick said, his voice a low growl. Fenris skidded to a halt, his chest heaving. You don't understand, he said, his voice frantic. I didn't have a choice. The collective, they don't ask, they take. If I didn't cooperate, they'd have killed me. And how many people did your cooperation put in danger? Seraphine demanded, her staff glowing as she approached. How many lives have you endangered for your survival? Fenris's ears flattened, his expression shifting from fear to resignation. You think you've won, but you don't know what you're up against. The collective is everywhere. They'll come for you next. Jack leveled his pistol at Fenris, his expression cold. Let them try. Fenris was taken into custody, his operations on Starlight Keep dismantled. The evidence he provided was damning but incomplete, hinting at larger forces at play. As the team reconvened in the moonlit plaza, the weight of their discovery settled over them. This is only the beginning, Seraphine said quietly. The Harmonium Collective is far-reaching, and Fenris was just one piece of their puzzle. Jack holstered his pistol, his jaw tight. Then we keep digging. They wanted chaos, but they're about to find out what humans do best. And what's that? Darius asked, a faint smirk on his lips. Jack's grin was sharp. Adapt, overcome, and win. Chapter 8. Crystal Caverns. The air in the crystal caverns felt heavier than usual. The marketplace, once vibrant with energy and life, had fallen silent, the weight of the team's discovery looming over the station. Fenris Lightfoot had been taken into custody, but the answers he gave only led to more questions. His confession was damning. The alien trader had been working with the Harmonium Collective, a shadowy faction seeking to destabilize the Confederation for their own gain. But Fenris, ever the slippery survivor, had been nothing more than a pawn, a piece in a much larger game. Seraphine Moonshadow stood at the edge of the cavern, gazing out at the glowing crystal formations that lined the walls, their light refracting like stars caught in time. She was calm, but the unease gnawing at her was hard to ignore. The pieces were falling into place, but the mastermind behind it all was still unknown. Fenris knows more, she said, turning to face the team, but there's something he's holding back. Jack Mitchell, standing beside her with his hands tucked into his jacket pockets, narrowed his eyes. It's never that simple, is it? First he's a traitor, now he's just a pawn. He'll never give us a clean answer. We need to force his hand, Darius Nightblade said, his voice low and measured. The more we press, the more he'll crack. But we're running out of time. Garrick Stonehelm crossed his arms, his weapon still holstered, but his posture tense. If he's just a pawn, who's the player pulling the strings? Someone in power, Seraphine said, her gaze distant. Someone who sees the instability as an opportunity. Someone high up, Jack added, his voice darker than usual. A member of the council. The following hours were a blur of strategic planning and anticipation. Darius and Jack pored over the latest intel, combing through every scrap of data they had on the Harmonium Collective and the council members. Every lead they followed seemed to circle back to the same unsettling conclusion. The true mastermind was a high-ranking official in the Starlight Keep Council, someone well-placed to manipulate both sides of the conflict. They had one chance to corner this person before the chaos they had orchestrated consumed everything. Jack stood, the sharp line of his jaw set in determination. I've had enough. Let's pay Fenris a visit. The crystal caverns once again became the setting for a confrontation, but this time the stakes were higher. Fenris Lightfoot had been moved to a secure holding cell in a remote corner of the station, his once confident demeanor replaced by nervousness and fear. The alien trader knew what was coming. He could sense the noose tightening. Seraphine, Jack, Darius, and Garrick entered the holding area, their weapons ready but holstered. Fenris was seated in the middle of the room, his hands clasped in front of him. His silver fur was matted with sweat, and his sharp eyes flicked nervously between them. "Tell us everything, Fenris," Seraphine said, her voice steady, though the undercurrent of urgency was clear. "Who's pulling the strings? Who ordered the sabotage?" Fenris let out a dry laugh. "You think I have the luxury of choosing sides? I've been in this game for years, long before you ever stepped foot on Starlight Keep." Jack stepped forward, his voice a low growl. "You sold us out, Fenris. You were ready to watch the station burn just for a few credits and a promise of protection. You're not a victim here. You're the one who sold everyone out." Fenris's eyes flicked to the door as if expecting someone. "You're right, Mitchell. I sold my soul, but I wasn't the one making the big moves. I'm just a supplier. I give them what they want, and they give me a way out. But you? You want to know who's really behind this? It's someone you'll never expect." His voice dropped to a whisper. "The real mastermind is Counselor Myler. He's the one pulling the strings, funding the Harmonium Collective, destabilizing the Confederation. And you know what? He's already started his endgame. He won't stop until Starlight Keep is gone, and he's the one left standing." Before Jack or Seraphine could react, Fenris smirked and hit a concealed button in his cell. A loud alarm blared, signaling the activation of multiple countdowns. "Too late," Fenris hissed. "You think you can stop me? You'll never make it in time. I set the bombs to go off across key sectors of the station. When this place goes, it's going to take half of the Confederation with it. Enjoy your last moments." The screens above the holding cell flashed a countdown, each one ticking down in real time. A sequence of locations blinked. Ironforge Deck, Whispering Woods, Moonlit Plaza. Bombs had been planted all over Starlight Keep, and the timer was running out. "Garrick, get a team to Ironforge Deck," Jack barked. "Darius, you're with me. We'll head to Moonlit Plaza. Seraphine, you take the Whispering Woods. We can't let any of these bombs go off." Seraphine didn't hesitate. "We split up. We disable the bombs, then we go after my lore." The team split, each headed toward their assigned locations, the ticking of the countdown echoing in their minds. Jack and Darius made their way to Moonlit Plaza, weaving through the now empty streets. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as the plaza came into view, eerily silent. He motioned for Darius to cover him as he approached a maintenance hatch. "I'll be quick," Jack muttered. He knelt beside the hatch, pulling out a small toolkit and setting to work, his hands moving with practiced precision. His fingers brushed over the lock, feeling for the wires beneath. "Damn it," he muttered. "I need more time." Darius's voice came from behind him, sharp. "We don't have more time, Jack. They're getting closer." Jack gritted his teeth. "I know that! Just keep—" An explosion rattled the ground beneath their feet, sending a shockwave through the station. Jack and Darius exchanged looks. "Too late!" Jack yelled, pulling out his plasma pistol and sprinting toward the source. "This isn't over!" As the bombs continued to tick down, Seraphine reached Whispering Woods, the familiar flora now a blur of frantic movement and noise. Her staff crackled with power, illuminating the dark corners as she scanned for the bomb. She found it beneath a large tree, its wires frayed and unstable. "Not today," she muttered to herself, drawing a deep breath. The connection was weak, the wires designed to destroy everything in its path. But Seraphine focused her energy, weaving a protective shield around the device and carefully cutting the power source. Her heart raced with every passing second, but the final click of the detonation sequence freezing in place was a sweet sound. One down. Chapter 9. Sacrifice. The explosion echoed through Starlight Keep, a distant rumble that shook the walls of the iron-forged deck. Garrick Stonehelm pushed through the smoke and debris, his GX-22 particle rifle now slung over his back as he dragged himself toward the final bomb. Sweat slicked his face as alarms blared overhead, the sound mingling with the frantic voices of his comms team. "Stonehelm," Jack Mitchell's voice cut through the noise. "What's your status?" Garrick coughed, waving the smoke from his face. "I'm looking at it now, but it's complicated." He knelt before the bomb, a monstrous construct of wires and circuitry, its countdown timer ticking dangerously close to zero. The device was far more advanced than the others, clearly designed to resist tampering. Garrick's fingers hovered over the exposed panel, his trained eye quickly assessing the tangled mess of conduits and triggers. "Time's not on our side," Jack urged over the comms. "Can you disarm it?" Garrick grunted. "Not without blowing half this deck into space. This thing's rigged to detonate if I so much as sneeze wrong." On the other side of the station, Jack and Darius had regrouped at Moonlit Plaza, having successfully disabled their bomb. Jack's hands were bloodied from his efforts, but his focus was unshaken as he listened to Garrick over the comms. "There has to be another way," Jack said, pacing in frustration. "Garrick, fall back and let me take over. I can—" "You're halfway across the station," Garrick interrupted. His voice was firm, resolute. "By the time you get here, it'll be too late." Seraphine Moonshadow's calm voice came through next, carrying both authority and urgency. "Garrick, your safety is paramount. If there's no way to disable the device, evacuate. We'll mitigate the damage as best we can." Garrick paused, his eyes fixed on the bomb's timer. 10 seconds. 9. 8. "No can do," he said, his voice softer now. "This is my station. I swore to protect it. You'll just have to tell the council I was stubborn." "Garrick, don't—" Seraphine started, but the line went silent. With steady hands, Garrick reached into the bomb's core and severed a primary conduit. The device sparked violently, sending a jolt of energy through his body that knocked him backward. He hit the ground hard, gasping as pain seared through him. The countdown froze at 2 seconds. The deck fell silent save for the distant hum of the station's systems. Garrick lay motionless, his breath shallow but steady. The bomb was defused. Hours later, the team gathered in the Moonlit Plaza, where an emergency session of the council had been called. Delegates from dozens of species filled the chamber, their faces a mixture of anger, confusion, and unease. At the center of the room, Seraphine and Jack stood side by side, their presence commanding the crowd's attention. Seraphine raised her staff, its soft glow silencing the murmurs. "Counselors, today we present evidence that will clear humanity of the baseless accusations leveled against them." Darius Nightblade stepped forward, projecting a holographic display that detailed the Harmonium Collective's communications. The logs revealed encrypted messages between Counselor Myler and Fenris Lightfoot, implicating them both in the sabotage. "The evidence speaks for itself," Darius said, his voice cold. Councillor Myler used Fenris as a pawn to destabilize this station and frame humanity. A gasp rippled through the room as Councillor Myler, seated among his peers, stood abruptly. "This is outrageous," he bellowed, his voice filled with indignation. "These so-called Death Worlders have fabricated this entire conspiracy to divert attention from their own guilt." Jack stepped forward, his voice sharp and unwavering. "Is that so? Because we have communications, financial records, and even Fenris's own testimony tying you to the sabotage." Seraphine turned to the gathered delegates, her voice calm but firm. "The evidence is irrefutable. Councillor Myler sought to exploit the distrust between species to consolidate power. But thanks to the bravery and resilience of this team, including the sacrifice of Garrick Stonehelm, his plans were thwarted." Councillor Myler's face twisted with anger, but before he could respond, security officers entered the chamber. "Councillor Myler, you are hereby placed under arrest for crimes against the Confederation," one of them announced. As Myler was escorted out, several people and aliens exhaled. The tension in the room began to dissipate. Delegates exchanged murmurs, some nodding in agreement with Seraphine's words. After the session, Jack and Seraphine stood together in the observation deck overlooking the station. The stars outside twinkled softly, a reminder of the vast galaxy they were working to protect. "You think they'll trust us now?" Jack asked, his tone lighter, but still tinged with fatigue. Seraphine smiled faintly. "Trust takes time, but today, humanity proved its worth not through words, but through action." Behind them, Garrick entered the room, leaning heavily on a crutch. His injuries were severe but not fatal, and his stubborn grin remained intact. "Did I miss the part where everyone admitted I was right?" Jack laughed, clapping Garrick on the shoulder. "You're lucky you're still standing, old man." Garrick winced but grinned. "And you're lucky I'm stubborn." Seraphine's gaze softened as she looked at the two men. "You've both earned this station's gratitude. Humanity has earned its place here." As the three stood together, the stars beyond the station seemed a little brighter. The galaxy was far from safe, but for now Starlight Keep stood united. Chapter 10. Unity Strengthened. The moonlit plaza had regained its former brilliance, the soft glow of holographic banners casting calming hues across the crowd that gathered beneath the central dome. Delegates and civilians alike filled the space, their conversations a mixture of relief and curiosity. The recent events had shaken the station, but the mood was shifting toward cautious optimism. At the heart of the plaza, Seraphine Moonshadow stood on an elevated platform, her midnight blue robes shimmering faintly in the ambient light. The polished staff in her hand glowed gently, reflecting the calm yet resolute energy she projected. Behind her, Jack Mitchell, Garrick Stonehelm, and the rest of the team stood. Seraphine's voice carried across the plaza, amplified by the station's systems, yet retaining its natural warmth. "Citizens of Starlight Keep, we gather here today not only to reflect on recent events, but to reaffirm what this station stands for: unity, trust, and the strength found in this keep." The murmurs in the crowd quieted as her words sank in. Seraphine continued, her gaze sweeping across the sea of faces. "The sabotage we faced was not an attack on any one faction, but on all of us. It sought to divide, to breed mistrust, and to unravel the very fabric of our shared existence. But we stood together, and together we prevailed." Her words earned a smattering of applause, which grew louder as she gestured toward Garrick. The security chief stood tall, despite the crutch supporting him, his injured leg a visible reminder of his sacrifice. "Garrick Stonehelm embodies the spirit of Starlight Keep," Seraphine said. "When faced with impossible odds, he chose to protect this station at great personal cost. His actions remind us all that true strength lies not in our differences, but in our shared commitment to one another." The crowd erupted into cheers, and Garrick, never one for fanfare, nodded stiffly, his gruff expression softening slightly as Jack clapped him on the shoulder. As the applause subsided, Jack stepped forward, his usual cocky demeanor tempered by the gravity of the moment. He adjusted the holster at his side, his Galrex mark, V gleaming under the plaza's lights. "I'm not one for speeches," Jack began, earning a ripple of chuckles. "But I've got to say, it's been a hell of a week. We've had accusations, explosions, and enough near-death experiences to last a lifetime. But through it all, one thing kept us going: the belief that we could prove humanity isn't the villain here." His gaze swept the crowd, landing briefly on the Talari and Ziran delegates who had been at the center of the peace accord. "I know humans can be a lot. We're loud, unpredictable, and yeah, sometimes reckless. But we're also stubborn as hell, and when we fight, it's not just for ourselves. It's for everyone standing beside us." The murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Jack's grin returned. "So, if you were looking for a reason to trust us, here it is. We're not perfect, but we're in this together." Seraphine smiled faintly as Jack stepped back, the crowd's applause swelling again. For all his rough edges, his sincerity had struck a chord. As the gathering began to disperse, Seraphine turned to the team. "We've won this battle, but the Harmonium Collective remains a threat. Their network stretches far beyond this station, and their motives remain shrouded in shadows." Lyra Starwhisper, her glowing eyes serene yet watchful, nodded. "The Collective thrives in chaos. They will not stop simply because their plans here were foiled." Jack crossed his arms, his expression hardening. "Let them come. We'll be ready." Seraphine's gaze lingered on the bustling plaza, the warmth of unity tempered by the weight of the future. "This station is a beacon of hope, but it's also a target. We must remain vigilant, not just for ourselves, but for what we represent." Garrick adjusted his crutch, his tone gruff but resolute. "As long as I'm breathing, no one's tearing this place down." The team exchanged determined nods, their unity unshaken. They had proven that Starlight Keep was more than just a station. It was a symbol of what the galaxy could achieve when differences are set aside and a common ground is found on which to unite. As the stars beyond the station shimmered in the void, Seraphine allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The fight was far from over, but for now, Starlight Keep stood united, and so did its people. The end. Thank you for listening to this audiobook. We create stories for you to enjoy here for free, so be a kind, gentle human and like and subscribe to not miss a single upload. Please consider joining the channel for exclusive content, and we hope you join us again in the next audiobook.